Hello friends, it's Elizabeth. I'm back today with another book launch truth. I must say I'm having a great time with this series and just really shining a light on what book launches are really like, because it's so easy to talk about the sunshine, puppy dogs and roses and being a bestseller and all the nice and fun things about launches, but we need to talk about the flip side as well so that you can enter into a book launch with eyes wide open and know exactly the good, the bad, and the ugly. So far in the series, we've talked about a couple of things. The first thing being that no one strategy will make you a bestseller, and why. And then in the previous video, we also talked about how and why your strategy is going to change not once, not twice, but multiple times before you launch your book. So if you haven't seen those two videos, I encourage you to watch those. I'll post a link in the comments below. But today, let's talk about a dirty little secret in the publishing space, and that's this. Launches can take a lot out of you. Said another way, launches can be physically and emotionally exhausting for so many reasons. So let's talk about the physical side of things. So with launches, there's always more to do than you think that you're going to need to do. Even when you have a fantastic plan, when you plan ahead and when you're proactive and say you even have a full team, there's always the unexpected that comes up that you need at the last minute, or say a strategic partner that's willing to promote you on email but wants you to write the email copy for them, which is understandable. There's all kinds of little things like that that are going to require additional time and energy from you. And as you get closer to a launch, it's just like a wedding or a big event. There's all these little things that are unexpected, or little complications that you need to handle that just adds on the amount of time and energy that you need to invest. And as a result, you end up working at night, working on the weekends, trying to juggle that with either running a business, or if you're an executive, like doing your day job. And it's just a lot to pull together at the last minute, even when you have a big budget and a big team. And, no matter how old you are, if you have several nights in a row where you're staying up late, that exhaustion takes its toll, not to mention the emotional side of things. So when you first start the launch process, say you're several months out from your launch, you're feeling so excited. You want to get this message out into the world. You want to sell books and reach readers, and it's feeling really fun and exciting. Until you get into the thick of the launch and you start, bumping up against challenges or unexpected complications. And launches from the emotional side can be like a roller coaster. One day you're up and thrilled because you just got a new speaking invitation from a really prestigious conference or an association, or you just found out about a great media placement, or some big podcasters agree to promote you. On those days, you're feeling really excited and, really connected to all the hopes and dreams that you have for your book. And then the next day, or quite honestly, sometimes it's the next hour, you're feeling down in the dumps because something major fell through. You're having to spend more money than you thought you were going to, or something is going to take more time. And, this emotional up and down is more often the case the reality than the exception. And why is this? We, when it comes to launching our book, we care a lot. We care a lot about our message, and we want to get our book in the hands of as many people as possible. And, underneath all that excitement and confidence that we know we have something of value that can change the conversation in our industry, there's the vulnerability. There's that, feeling of putting ourselves out there, and that fear of, what if someone doesn't want our book? What if they don't like our message and they, give us a 1-star review? By the way, I should tell you guys about the 1-star review that we got, we being Michael Port and I, when we released our book, The Contrarian Effect. This guy said, this is the worst book ever, 1 star. And then that's all he said. And, never mind the fact that we won awards for our book and had tons of positive reviews. Days like that, when you get that criticism or feedback, it can be really painful. And so just wanted to share a couple of tips today to help even out some of the ups and downs and the exhaustion that can come from launches. I mean, to a certain extent, a big launch, the bigger the launch that you're going to do, the more it's going to require of you from a time, energy, and money perspective. So you want to know that going into the game. And as long as you know that, you can make concessions and prepare in advance. You can put aside reserves of money and budget. You can clear your calendar of things that you don't necessarily need to handle that can wait until after the launch. You can hire additional team members. You can, in other words, create reserves of time, money, and energy to help offset some of those unexpected challenges that are not, if they'll come up, but they will come up. It's just a matter of how many of them and to what degree. And you never know, again, despite your best planning. So the first piece is to create those reserves. And then the second piece is to design a launch that you're up for. Like, design a launch that is in alignment with your business model and your current stage as an author and thought leader. One of the reasons that a lot of authors get so exhausted by the launch that they've designed is they've designed a launch out of scope with where they are currently, and they're trying to do too much and be in a different place than where they currently are with their audience and platform. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to sell, as many books as possible and wanting to see, a passenger on a plane 5 years from now reading a copy of your book. Of course, all of those things are wonderful and good, but the best launches are those that create a lot of momentum and excitement for you and allow you to follow through so that you're not so exhausted at the end of the launch that you never want to see your book again, which, I'll just be honest, with the launch that that Michael and I worked on together for our book, The Contrarian Effect, I was so emotionally spent and discouraged after that launch that it took a lot for me to recover. And that was in the early days. I knew better even. Like, at that point, I had already been working with clients. This was all the way back to 2008. And yet, when you're there emotionally, it's so hard to remember that when you have a message that's meant to change the conversation in the industry, that you're in it for the long game. And no matter what happens with the launch, whether you make the bestseller list or whether you miss it by a couple hundred or 1,000 books, that's not the end of the story. I'm going to talk about that more on Friday, about how launches are not the finish line, but the starting point. But for today, just know that launches are physically and emotionally tiring. No matter how well you plan, no matter how much work you've done on yourself and how evolved you are from a spiritual and emotional perspective, it's a very vulnerable it's exciting and thrilling, but it's very vulnerable emotional undertaking. So just know that. Also know that you can plan ahead and create those reserves for yourself. And then finally, you can be intentional about designing the launch that is right for you right now. Maybe you have a bigger launch in the future, but for right now, hey Madeline, thanks for joining. You want to design that launch that makes sense, based on your stage and for your audience. In fact, I 2 different clients that signed up for one of my thought leader spotlight sessions around their book. We talked about their book launch. They were in that position. They don't have a huge platform, and yet in just a 60-minute call, we outlined some very relevant strategies for them that's going to keep them busy for the next 6 to 12 months, making the most of each opportunity and selling one book or a handful of books at the time. And that's the big difference between an author who's a bestseller for a day or a week or maybe even a month and those perennial sellers. Actually, there's several differences, but one of the biggest ones is to say there's no magic bullet, and that after your launch, it's about selling those books one day at a time, 1 week at a time, 1 month at a time. Okay, so I'm going to leave that here today. Can't wait to continue this conversation tomorrow with our next book launch truth, and we've got 2 more this week, so hopefully you can join. As always, we'll always love to hear your comments, questions, suggestions, and experiences and perspectives, so put those in the comments below. And I'm just grateful for all of you for taking the time to watch and to investing in your message and your work in this way. So thank you, and see you next time.